Whose name was dragged through the mud so much we forget they were a good, innocent person? Lindy and Michael Chamberlain. A lot of people just repeat the ridiculous "Dingo ate my baby" phrase without knowing the story behind it. A lot of shows have made comical references to it. Well, this poor family had their 9-week-old infant killed by dingoes, they weren't believed and she was convicted of murder and sentenced to life, and he was convicted of being accessory after the fact. Turns out their story was true. She spent 3 years in prison before a piece of the infant's clothing was found and they were cleared. But all people remember as "Dingo ate my baby." How ridiculous, that would never happen. Richard Jewell. He was accused of the bombing in Atlanta during the Olympics but had absolutely nothing to do with it. His life was pretty well screwed. The lady who sued McDonald's over the coffee that scalded her that they knew to be so hot it was dangerous, Stella Liebeck. More her story than her name. Edit, thank you for the awards, less than 3. Edit 2, you, Begonian in the comments said their grandmother was a personal friend of Stella's. This was their quote about her life afterward. It was lovely and I think should be known. She was very proud to have helped the same from happening to other people. Her feeling seemed to be if she prevented anyone else from being injured, it was worth her burns. Monica Lewinsky was treated like dog shit for over a decade. She never deserved what she got. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, a famous silent film comedian. In 1921, he was accused of violently raping a woman and causing her death. He was put on trial 3 times, the first 2 trials ended with hung juries, but in the third, when more evidence was reviewed, he was acquitted and a jury even presented him with an apology, stating, "Acquittal is not enough for Roscoe Arbuckle. We feel that a great injustice has been done him." But by that time, he was vilified in the media, and could not find work anymore as an actor. Britney Spears. Christopher Jeffries. Anyone in the UK will know this story. He was arrested in connection with a murder because he was very eccentric and was an old unmarried man, therefore he totally did it. He was the landlord and had a key after all. Was released just days later, but the damage was done. The press were all over him and he had to move. The guy who photographed the African kid dying with a vulture lurking nearby. Apparently after he took the photo he scared off the vulture and the kid survived for another 10 years or so, dying when they were around 18. Remember when Reddit tried to find the Boston bomber? We did it. Oh wait, whoops, wrong guy and now he's killed himself. Marilyn Monroe. She was stereotyped as the dumb blonde sex object similar to Britney Spears and was rumored to be hard to work with. Reality was that she was academically intelligent, supported the civil rights movements, had schizophrenia and bipolar disorder along with trauma from experiencing child abuse in foster care. She was always kind to people and actually helped Ella Fitzgerald be able to get bookings by telling clubs that she'd only attend the club if Ella was hired to sing. The Empress Theodora, of Byzantium. In reality, she was a brilliant woman who helped her husband rule an empire, and kept the various religions from having open warfare. Did lots of good stuff. But she got her start as a dancer, basically, a stripper. This pissed off some of the imperial court so much, one wrote a history that made her out to be that era's biggest porn star. Which became the accepted version for centuries. Christopher Jeffries, accused by the British media of murdering student Joanna Yates in 2010. He was completely innocent but the media found out he had been taken in for questioning and printed his face on every front page. I don't recall an apology being printed when they were wrong. I know someone named Karen who the nicest non-complaint person ever. That Cubs fan who caught that ball, Steve Bartman. Everyone was reaching for it, and anyone would have tried to catch it, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That poor guy who the internet thought killed Elisa Lam. Dude had all his accounts shut down. Music was his passion, his joy. It's been 7 years since he's made any. He's said the harassment killed his self-expression. He tried to kill himself. No one ever apologized. Patricia Stallings was accused of murdering her infant son, sent to jail and not allowed to attend his funeral. When her second son was born in jail and had the same issues, doctors accused her husband of poisoning him during supervised visits. Eventually it was figured out he had a rare genetic disorder called methylmalonic acidemia. Her conviction was overturned when her case aired on Unsolved Mysteries and dozens of doctors called in to verify the symptoms of antifreeze poisoning and MMA are deceptively similar. Her second son was eventually returned to their custody but sadly died at just 23. Jimmy Carter, he's not dragged through the mud as much today, but he was by far not the worst president ever. Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best. The only thing these guys were guilty of, was portraying characters the way George Lucas wanted them portrayed. But no, both childhood Anakin Skywalker and Jar Jar Binks were excoriated severely by Star Wars fans. Lloyd destroyed his Star Wars memorabilia and developed paranoid schizophrenia. Best fell into a deep depression and contemplated suicide. All because Star Wars fans hated their characters. Marie Antoinette. She never said, "Let them eat cake." She actually cared and paid for the schooling of poor children. She was a woman born into royalty. Yeah, fuck royalty, but at 13 she was shipped off to France, forced to give up all Austrian thing, including her dog, and then required to be part of this insane pageantry that was Versailles. She couldn't change anything because it wasn't her damn job to. Her last words to the executioner after stepping on his foot was, "I'm sorry sir, I didn't mean to do it," not to mention her seeing her kids get beaten. Janet Jackson. Her career was destroyed, while Justin is an A-list actor. Monica Lewinsky. John DeLorean was no saint, but his reputation as a coke fiend came from the FBI and DEA coercing him into trafficking cocaine by threatening to murder his family if he didn't. They then tried him for it. He was found not guilty, but the damage was done. When Britney Spears had her mental break and everyone in the talk show, entertainment circle made fun of her. He's regarded as a hero now, but Richard Jewell is the best example of a person being tried and convicted by the media. The Central Park Five, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Antron McCrae, Yusuf Salaam, Corey Wise. Richard Ritchie, the original suspect in the Elizabeth Smart case. He was arrested on a parole violation and held in custody for over 2 months with intense interrogations, before dying of a brain aneurysm while still in prison. Elizabeth was discovered many months later, having been held by another, unrelated, man. I don't know if Richard Ritchie was a good, innocent person, but he was not guilty of that crime. Michael Jackson's been depicted by a lot of shows as a pedophile, but the FBI did a thorough investigation of him and concluded there was no evidence of wrongdoing. It's not exactly per the title, but my sister pointed out to me a while ago how weird it is that we associate Salem with witches and witchcraft, when kind of the whole point of those events was that were no witches. If anything, we should associate it with mob rule and religious extremism. I'm not sure if this counts, but Guy Fieri. Everyone shits on him for wearing a flame shirt and having spiky hair, but he's actually a super nice charitable dude. Al Gore sent a message that no one wanted to hear, and people began to claim that SNL and South Park parodies of him were things he actually said. Lisa Bonet. In the 80s she was branded as an ungrateful brat for leaving The Cosby Show and A Different World. Now we know she was probably allegedly trying to get the hell away from Bill Cosby. Cleopatra. She was painted as a scandalous beautiful temptress when in reality she was an incredibly smart and tactical leader. Her current image is a result of the propaganda spread by her enemies to ruin her reputation. King Richard III. Shakespeare happily wrote propaganda for his political benefactors. Some police shooting victims. They have their names dragged through the mud in an attempt to justify what happened. A Kiwi example, but Tana Pora. Guy just on the cusp of being legally mentally retarded, and he heard if he gave information to police about a murder, he'd get money. So he went and made up a bunch of stuff. But youngish Maori guy and a murder? Got put away for decades with no more proof than a coerced confession he didn't even understand. He thought saying what they wanted meant he was allowed to leave. He got paid out, but without intensive money management from his daughter it won't last long, and still not worth his entire youth. Okay, not a person, but Shark's jaws and other moves have give Sharks a bad rap. Johnny Depp. Amber Heard's lies have twisted his reputation and destroyed more than one of his role careers. He never deserved it. Anna Nicole Smith. She was not perfect, definitely, but she did have a troubled upbringing, several troubled romantic relationships, and multiple drug addictions thanks to her last partner and eventual husband, Howard K. Stern. Samuel Mudd. Captain of the Exxon Valdez. He made a horrible mistake and the media portrayed him as a filthy alcoholic. Reality was he actually was sober at the time when the accident happened. The mistake was he put a green, inexperienced crew on helm's control. He didn't abandon ship, he did not run away, he did stand trial, he did pay the fines, he did his time. Exxon Valdez is synonymous with everything evil about the oil industry, and despite Deepwater Horizon and MV Wakashio. They always go after the Exxon because boatman bad captain drinky drunk cuss comedians say so. Captain Joseph J. Hazelwood is his name, by the way. The McMartin family of Manhattan Beach, CA. They were a family running an ordinary daycare school and were vilified to the extent they not only lost their business, their social lives, but had to move, and at least one had to change his name. This was before social media. The local press and attention-seeking interviewer did it to them. Richard Jewell, he was accused of the Atlanta Olympic bombings, he was finally exonerated after years of shit. Monica Lewinsky. Everyone blamed her, not Bill. The Duke lacrosse players who were falsely accused of rape by a woman named Crystal Mangum in 2006. It was a huge story that sparked discussions of racism, the accused players were white and she was black, and due process, and how one false accusation can ruin someone's life. Mickey Mouse has become a negative term for something petty and unimportant. The poor mouse never did anything wrong. Remember when everyone believed that Carol Baskin fed her husband to tigers just because some cracker who is currently in prison said so? I'm not saying she is a good person or anything, but seriously, there is zero proof and the guy was in some animal traffic ring. I got this. The Milli Vanilli. Amanda Knox. Sinead O'Connor called out the sexual abuse by the Catholic Church while they were still actively covering it all up. TBH. Anne Boleyn.